Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr here today with a Polychromos on dark cardstock Happy Thanksgiving card to share with you using the Autumn Bounty Stamp and Cut set. This was an add-on released with the September My Monthly Hero card kit, and it's a beautiful little mini stamp set with lots of fantastic images that are great for Thanksgiving, fall, Halloween. And I am going to create this background here today where I am stamping the images on a dark navy cardstock. You could use any color of dark cardstock to get the same effect. I think dark gray, even a dark green, a red, black, all give really great results as well. Just a dark cardstock, because I think that's where the Polychromos really shine through with this particular technique and look amazing over the dark cardstock, not just on white cardstock. What I did to help speed this up is I'm going to stamp this exact same group of images using my stamp positioner tool in the two opposite corners of this design. This really limited the amount of time it took me to put together my background. Instead of stamping all of them individually, I tried to group as many as I could with one press of the machine. In this case, I was able to do that twice. Then I simply went ahead and did it again for filling in quite a bit of the rest of the area, and then I'm simply going to take my acrylic blocks and a couple more of the images and fill in along the edges where I think I need a few more images. I want to make sure the entire background is completely covered. This background does measure 4¼ by 5½ inches. It's A2 sized. It's going to cover the entire front of a standard size card base. Once I have my images stamped with Versamark, I am going to take some Hero Arts gold embossing powder and sprinkle it on all of my images. I did use a powder tool. You can see the powder there all over my cardstock. It really shows up especially on dark cardstock. To help keep my embossing powder only on the embossed areas and not migrate elsewhere onto the background as much as possible. Once I have my embossing powder, I'm going to take the Hero Arts heat tool and I am going to heat this and melt all that embossing powder. I like to take my heat tool to the back as well as the front of the panel and make sure my heat tool is really good and hot before I bring it to the paper. Anytime you're embossing this big of an area, whether it be a background stamp or lots of images, the chances of your paper warping increase. The hotter your tool is before you bring it to your paper, the less warping you'll have. Once I have my background here, I'm going to just take a dry rag. You can take a dry paper towel, anything like that, and I am going to buff away that powder. Get rid of that because it really doesn't look that great, and that's just going to remove all of that from my background. Let's start coloring in with our Polychromos colored pencils. You can use any colored pencils you like. Polychromos just really tend to not leave a waxy film, and they work especially well over dark cardstock. What I like to do, especially on dark cardstock, is put a layer of white colored pencil down first and then color over that with the colors I'm using to color in my images. I have listed the colors of Polychromos that I am using across the top of the screen for easy reference. So if at any time you're wondering exactly which colors I'm using, you can find that information there. I decided to go ahead and color all of the pumpkins first, then we'll move on to some of the other gourds and things like that, and the ear of corn and leaves. But this just kind of keeps it easy to color everything that is similar all at one time. I used the white and then a little bit of a reddish orange color and then a orange for the pumpkin, so a pretty standard pumpkin color. I really wanted an orange on this navy cardstock. Navy and orange look amazing, especially for fall. And then some great browns for the stem of the pumpkins. I did not put a white layer underneath that. It's a pretty small area, and you can see the browns cover over the navy really well. I'm always just so amazed at how fantastic and bright and vibrant the colors are over a navy cardstock. Once I have my color down, I like to go in with the white pencil and just kind of put in a few little highlights, especially on the larger images. Gives it a little bit more of a realistic look, and you get a great effect with that. I also keep a pencil sharpener handy to sharpen my pencils often. I like to have a really nice sharp tip to my pencils for better results, especially in those teeny tiny tight areas. For the ear of corn, I used a yellow color and also a brown with my white, and I did the ears of corn first. I will come back and do the husks in just a little bit, and since they have dried out, I'm not going to do them in green. I'll be doing those in brown. I thought that worked a little bit better for a fall themed card. I will, however, use some greens on some of the gourds. Again, putting down a white layer. These have a gold embossing kind of stripe through them, so it's really minimal coloring. But I did lay down a little bit of white and then go over the entire white area with my green markers. Again, doing all four of these at once before moving on to the next area. You can really see our backgrounds start to come to life. Creating my own backgrounds from stamps is one of my favorite techniques, and it's a really effective way to create a really amazing background with repeating patterns. For my other gourd image, I'm using some yellows and browns, again with a white stripe or white underneath, adding highlights to the green as well. So I went back over the green after I colored and blended it in with my white colored pencil to add just a little highlight area. For the leaves, I did put a nice layer of white down, and we're going to pull in some deep kind of wine reds here. Just adding yet another layer of a great autumn color. This kind of encompasses all of my favorite autumn colors with orange, dark greens, deep yellows, browns, and then the beautiful red, and then the navy background. And the reds kind of match my nails today. So once we have this all colored in, let's go ahead and grab the husks of the corn. We've got these two in the center, and then probably just a tiny little bit in each corner. We'll need a little bit of color. And that really finishes these off nice. Again, with the white layer underneath, I feel like it helps make the color pop even more. And the gold embossing is just very showy on a dark cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and take a scrap of navy cardstock now, and we are going to stamp greetings for our card on this scrap of cardstock using sentiments from this Autumn Bounty Stampin' Cup cut, the same stamp set that we used to create our background. I'm going to start with the word Thanksgiving. I'm going to stamp that with Versamark ink. We'll stamp happy right above that once we get the Thanksgiving stamped. And then we want to emboss the Happy Thanksgiving sentiment with gold embossing powder before we stamp the rest of our greeting. This is a two-tone embossed greeting, which is one of my favorite ways to really draw your eye to the sentiment. I knew I wanted to use Happy Thanksgiving and then You're Gorgeous, which is a really cute little punny play on words for this sentiment. But in order to make it really show up, I think if I had went ahead and stamped that with the gold embossing powder, the loops on the G's would have really kind of all blended together with the rest of the sentiment, and it might have been kind of hard to read. So I went ahead and embossed the Happy Thanksgiving with the gold embossing powder first, and then we'll stamp your gorgeous underneath that. Again with Versamark ink, but this time we'll emboss with white embossing powder. Then we're going to die cut this with an oval infinity die. And what I love about the infinity dies is that they come in so many sizes, so we can mat our sentiment oval on another oval to really make it stand out and or stand out from the background. So there is our entire sentiment die cut. We'll grab the next size up and die cut an oval from white cardstock to frame this up. The white of the oval mat will kind of pull out the white from the rest of this stamped sentiment. I'm going to go ahead and adhere that to my white oval, and then we're going to pop our ovals up with some foam adhesive squares to give them a little bit of dimension. And again, just to help draw your eye so it doesn't blend into the background too much. Then I did stamp 3 additional images from the Autumn Bounty Stamp and Cut. I stamped them with Versamark ink, heat embossed with gold embossing powder, and colored them in just like I did the background images. But this time I used the coordinating dies to die cut the ear of corn, a pumpkin, and the leaf. And then we're going to adhere these along the bottom edge of our oval sentiment to finish off the card. Anywhere that these images overhang the oval, because the oval's popped up on foam adhesive, I'm going to put a little foam adhesive along the bottom edge of the pumpkin, underneath the husks on the ear of the corn, and then a little foam adhesive square underneath kind of one little corner of the leaf to secure them to the card a lot better, and they're all popped up just like our sentiment. We'll take this panel, adhere it to a white top fold card base, and our Happy Thanksgiving card featuring coloring, stamped and embossed images on dark cardstock using Polychromos is all finished. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this Hero Arts Thanksgiving card. Please be sure to subscribe to the Hero Arts YouTube channel for more inspiration. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.